Businessman feeds boy in wheelchair. Unknowingly caught on camera and video goes viral. Michael Thompson adjusted his tie knot as he hurried down the busy sidewalk in downtown Denver. The 42-year-old businessman was running late for a crucial meeting that could save his construction company from bankruptcy. That's when he spotted the boy in the wheelchair, alone, trying to reach a jar of baby food that had fallen to the ground. Without a second thought, Michael stopped. The boy, who looked about 9 years old, stared at the jar with tears in his eyes. "Hey buddy, let me help you," Michael said, kneeling beside the wheelchair. The boy, whose name he would soon learn was Ethan, had cerebral palsy and struggled to feed himself. "My dad. He went to get medicine," Ethan murmured with difficulty. "I was hungry." Michael glanced around. The nearest pharmacy was 3 blocks away. He checked his watch. 15 minutes until his meeting. He picked up the jar, but it was empty, its contents spilled on the sidewalk. "Wait here," he said, rushing to a nearby cafe. He returned with a jar of fruit smoothie and soft cookies. Sitting on the curb, completely forgetting his expensive suit, he began carefully feeding Ethan. The boy smiled between spoonfuls, his brown eyes shining with gratitude. What Michael didn't realize was that Rachel Wilson, a 28-year-old woman, working in the building across the street, was filming the entire scene from her third-floor window. Rachel had noticed the boy alone a few minutes earlier and was about to go help when she saw the businessman approach. "You like football?" Michael asked, trying to distract Ethan as he fed him. The boy nodded eagerly. "What's your team?" Ethan tried to answer, but the words came out jumbled. Michael waited patiently, unhurried. "Nuggets," the boy finally managed. Michael laughed. "Oh, so we're rivals. I'm a Broncos fan." Ethan laughed too, a pure, joyful sound that warmed the businessman's heart. In that moment, Michael completely forgot about the meeting, his struggling company, the mounting debts. There was only this moment, this simple, genuine human connection. Rachel kept filming, moved by the scene. She recognized Michael Thompson. Everyone downtown knew the owner of Thompson Construction Group. She'd also heard the rumors about the company's financial troubles. Seeing this powerful man, usually so serious and rushed, taking time to care for a stranger's child, touched her deeply. After 20 minutes, a man came running, carrying a bag of medicine. "Ethan." "Oh my. God, son, I'm so sorry it took so long." It was Marcus Johnson, 35, who had raised his son alone since his wife passed away during childbirth. "Don't worry," Michael said, standing and wiping his hands. "It was a pleasure meeting Ethan. He's quite the little fan." Marcus looked, surprised at the man in the expensive suit. "Thank you so much, sir." Michael Thompson." He extended his hand. Marcus's eyes widened. "The Michael Thompson? From the construction company?" Michael nodded dismissively. "I have to go. Ethan, I promise we'll watch a mile-high derby together someday. Deal?" The boy's eyes lit up. Marcus was speechless as he watched the businessman hurry away, likely very late for an important appointment. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now, continuing. That night, Rachel came home and showed the video to her mother, Mrs. Barbara, a 67-year-old woman who lived with her. "Mum, you have to see this. Remember Michael Thompson, that businessman who's always in the news?" Mrs. Barbara adjusted her glasses and watched the video. Tears streamed down her wrinkled face. "What a beautiful thing, my dear. This needs to be shared. The world needs to see that kindness still exists." Rachel hesitated. "But Mom, I filmed it without permission." "My child, sometimes God puts us in the right place to be His instruments. Post that video. It'll do so much good for people." Rachel posted the video on her social media with the caption, "Businessman stops everything to help a child with disabilities. Love still exists in the world." Within 2 hours, the video had 1,000 shares. In 6 hours, 50,000. By key. The next morning, it had gone completely viral. Michael found out about the video through his assistant, Jennifer. "Mr. Thompson, you need to see this," she said, entering his office with her phone in hand. Michael watched the video, his face paling, not because of the exposure, but because the meeting he'd missed the day before had sealed his company's fate. The bank had denied the loan. Thompson Construction Group had 3 months at most before shutting its doors. "Sir, the phone won't stop ringing," Jennifer continued. "Journalists, TV stations, everyone wants to talk to you about the video." Michael ran a hand over his face. The last thing he needed now was media attention. "Tell them I'm not giving interviews." But the video kept spreading. Comments flooded social media. "What an incredible man. This restores my faith in humanity. We need more people like this in the world." What no one knew was that the video's virality was about to set off a chain of events that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. 2 days later, Richard Parker watched the video in his luxurious New York City office. The 58-year-old businessman owned one of the largest construction firms in the country and had a complicated history with Michael Thompson. 15 years ago, they had been partners. Their split had been messy, with accusations on both sides. "So Michael's a saint now," Richard muttered sarcastically. He called his assistant. "Find out everything about Thompson Construction Group's current situation. Everything." Meanwhile, in Denver, Marcus took Ethan to another physical therapy session. The boy wouldn't stop talking about Michael. "Dad, do you think he'll really take me to the game?" Marcus sighed. He worked as a janitor at a mall and could barely afford his son's treatments. The promise from a wealthy businessman seemed like a distant dream. "We'll see, son. Sometimes people make promises and forget." But Ethan was persistent. That night, with his father's help, he wrote a shaky letter to Michael. "Dear Mr. Thompson, thank you for the vitamin. When are we going to the game? Love, Ethan." Marcus found the address of the construction company and during his lunch break the next day went to deliver the letter. The receptionist, an unfriendly young woman named Ashley, looked at the man in his janitor's uniform with disdain. "Mr. Thompson is very busy," she said without even glancing at the letter. "Leave it here and I'll make sure he gets it." Marcus knew the letter would never reach its destination. He insisted. "Please, it's from my son." "The boy in the video, Mr. Thompson promised..." Ashley rolled her eyes. "Look, buddy, Mr. Thompson helped your kid out of politeness. That doesn't mean you can come here asking for favors." The humiliation burned in Marcus's chest. He walked, away with the crumpled letter in his hand and tears in his eyes. How would he explain this to Ethan? Upstairs, Michael was in a tense meeting with his accountant, David Miller. "The situation is critical, Michael. If we don't secure an investor or a major contract in the next 60 days..." "I know," Michael interrupted. "How many employees will we have to let go?" "At least half of the 300. Michael felt the weight of responsibility. 300 employees, 300 families depending on him. How had it come to this? The company his father had founded 40 years ago, which he had expanded and modernized, was on the brink of collapse. The phone rang. It was Jennifer. "Sir, there's a reporter here insisting on speaking with you. It's about the video." "I already said I'm not giving interviews." She mentioned she has information about the boy, that he's trying to reach out. Michael frowned. "What boy?" Then he remembered. Ethan. "Send her up." The reporter was Catherine Brooks, 45, known for her investigative pieces. But this time she came with a different proposal. "Mr. Thompson, I'm here because I heard Ethan's father was here earlier and was mistreated at reception." Michael was surprised. "Mistreated how?" Catherine shared what she had uncovered. The receptionist had been rude, implying Marcus was after money. The man left humiliated. "The boy wrote you a letter." Michael felt anger rise. "Jennifer," he called. "I want to speak with Ashley. Now." While they waited, Catherine continued. "Mr. Thompson, I know you don't want publicity, but this story has moved a lot of people. I'd like to write a follow-up piece, showing you kept your promise. To take the boy to the game." Michael shook his head. "This isn't about publicity, Ms. Brooks. I genuinely like Ethan. He's a special kid." Ashley entered the room, already defensive. Michael didn't mince words. "Did you mistreat Ethan's father today?" Sir, so many people come here trying to take advantage. You're fired. Gather your things and leave now." Ashley began to cry, but Michael was firm. After she left, he turned to Catherine. "Give me their address. I'll go personally to apologize." Catherine smiled. "Can I come along?" Michael hesitated. The last thing he wanted was to turn this into a media circus, but something in the reporter's gaze convinced him. No cameras, no sensationalism. If you want to tell the story later, fine, but right now it's just a visit. An hour later, Michael parked his car in front of the housing complex where Marcus and Ethan lived. The contrast to his world was stark. Poorly maintained buildings, graffiti on the walls, children playing on a broken playground. Marcus opened the door, hardly believing his eyes. "Mr. Michael?" "Just Michael, please. I came to apologize for what happened at the office today and to get Ethan's letter." Ethan appeared at the door, his face lighting up. "Uncle Michael, you came." The apartment was small but clean and tidy. On the walls, drawings by Ethan. In one corner, the manual wheelchair he used at home, simpler than the motorized one he used outside. Michael noticed the medicine bottles on the table, the stack of bills, the clear signs of a hard but dignified life. "Marcus, tell me about yourselves," Michael asked, sitting on the worn sofa. And Marcus did. About his wife, who died in childbirth. About Ethan's cerebral palsy. About the financial struggles, the expensive therapies, the daily prejudices. But also about the joys, his son's intelligence, the small victories. Michael listened silently, his heart heavy. Here was a man fighting battles far greater than his own, with dignity and love. "About the game," Michael finally said. "How about Sunday, the Mile High Derby at Mile High Stadium?" Ethan's eyes shone so brightly, Michael had to fight back, tears. Catherine, observing quietly, realized this was far more than a viral feel-good story. There was pain, struggle, humanity in its rawest form. And she sensed this meeting was just the beginning of something much bigger. On Sunday, Michael arrived early to pick up Ethan and Marcus. He had secured box seats with wheelchair access. During the drive, Ethan couldn't stop talking, his happiness contagious. At the stadium, news that the businessman from the viral video was there with the boy spread quickly. People approached to greet them and take photos. Michael tried to shield Ethan from the attention, but the boy was beaming. That's when Michael spotted someone who made his blood run cold. Richard Parker was in the neighboring VIP box, surrounded by important businessmen and politicians. Their eyes met. Richard's sarcastic smile said it all. During halftime, Richard approached. "Michael, what a pleasant surprise. I saw the video. Very touching." His tone was venomous. "Richard," Michael replied curtly. Richard glanced at Ethan, who was distracted eating popcorn. "What an adorable boy. It's always good to help those in need, isn't it? Especially when you need good publicity." Michael clenched his fists. "It's not about that." "Of course not," Richard lowered his voice. "By the way, I heard Thompson Construction Group isn't doing well. What a shame. If you need help..." His smile was predatory. Michael understood. Richard was there to provoke him, to show he knew about his struggles. Their old rivalry still burned strong. When they returned to their seats, Marcus asked, "Who was that man?" "No one important," Michael answered, but his mind was already racing. Richard Parker never did anything without a reason. If he was there, if he'd made a point of showing himself, it meant he was plotting something. The game ended with a Nuggets victory, much to Ethan's delight. As they left, more people approached, wanting to meet the boy from the video. An elderly woman approached in tears. "My grandson also has cerebral palsy. Seeing the video gave me hope." Michael began to realize the impact that simple gesture had made. It wasn't just about him and Ethan. It had touched something bigger, a collective need to believe in human kindness. In the car on the way home, Ethan slept, exhausted but happy. Marcus turned to Michael. "I don't know how to thank you. It's been so long since I've seen my son this happy." "No need to thank me. In fact, I should be thanking you." Ethan reminded me what really matters. But when Michael got home that night, he found an envelope slipped under his door. Inside were photos of him and Ethan at the stadium, along with a note. "Nice marketing move. But it won't be enough to save your company. RP." Richard Parker was making his move. and Michael sensed the game was only beginning. The next morning, Monday, Michael arrived at the office to find unusual activity. Jennifer waited nervously. "Mr. Thompson, we have a problem. 3 of our biggest clients cancelled contracts this morning." 3? How? They all gave the same reason. They got better offers from Parker Engineering. Michael's blood boiled. Richard was attacking, stealing his clients. It was a low blow, but typical of him. "Call an emergency meeting with all managers," Michael ordered, "and get me updated numbers on all ongoing projects." Meanwhile, across town, Rachel watched the video's numbers continue to climb. Now, over 2 million views. Comments poured in from across the United States and even abroad. Journalists began reaching out for interviews. Her mother, Mrs. Barbara, was worried. "Honey, don't you think you should have asked permission before posting?" Rachel was starting to second-guess herself too. What if the businessman didn't want the exposure? What if there were consequences she hadn't foreseen? Her fears were confirmed when she received a call. "Ms. Rachel Wilson? This is Attorney Benjamin Wells representing Mr. Michael Thompson. We need to discuss the video you posted." Rachel's stomach dropped. Was she being sued? The meeting was set for that afternoon at the law office. Rachel went with her mother, both tense. But when they arrived, the surprise. Michael was there and he didn't seem angry. "Rachel, don't worry," he said as soon as they walked in. "I'm not here to sue anyone. Quite the opposite." The attorney explained, "Mr. Thompson would like to establish some guidelines for the use of the video. Many companies want to use it for advertising, and we want to ensure Ethan's image is protected." Michael added, "All the money from the video will go into a fund for Ethan's treatment, but we need your permission, since you're the one who filmed it." Rachel couldn't believe it. "You're not angry?" Michael smiled sadly. "At first I was uncomfortable, but then I realized that moment touched a lot of people. If it can do good, why stop it?" Mrs. Barbara, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. "You're a good man, Mr. Michael, but I've heard your company is in trouble. Is that true?" Michael was taken aback by the woman's frankness. "How do you know that?" "My late husband worked in construction his whole life. We know the stories. I also know who Richard Parker is." Rachel looked at her mother in surprise. "Mom, what do you mean?" Mrs. Barbara continued. "Parker has destroyed many good businesses in this city. He's a ruthless man. If he's after you, Mr. Michael, it's because he sees an opportunity." Michael grew thoughtful. This woman knew more than she let on. "Did you know my father?" "Robert Thompson was a man of integrity. He helped many people. My husband always spoke highly of him." Mrs. Barbara paused. "Mr. Michael, may I be honest? Please. This video could be a blessing in disguise. People saw your heart. Use that to your advantage, not with deceit, but with truth. Show them who you really are." The woman's words echoed in Michael's mind all the way back to the office. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was a way to use this wave of goodwill for something greater. But his thoughts were interrupted by a call from Jennifer. "Sir, you need to come back immediately. We have a situation." When he arrived at the company, he found the lobby full of agitated employees. At the center of the commotion, Marcus held Ethan in his arms. The boy was crying uncontrollably. "What happened?" Michael asked, pushing through the crowd. "Mr. Michael." Marcus was desperate. "They took our home. They came with an eviction notice, said the building was sold and we have to leave today." Michael felt a surge of anger. This couldn't be a coincidence. Who bought the building? A company, New Horizon Ventures. Michael knew that name. It was one of Richard Parker's shell companies. The bastard wasn't just coming after him. Now he was using Ethan and Marcus as pawns in his sick game. "Jennifer, call Attorney Benjamin now. Marcus, you and Ethan will stay at the company's hotel until we sort this out." But Marcus shook his head. "I can't accept any more help, Mr. Michael. You've already done too much." "Marcus, listen." Michael gripped the man's shoulders. "This isn't a coincidence. They're using you to get to me. I put you in this situation." Ethan had stopped crying and looked at Michael with those big, trusting eyes. "Uncle Michael, are we going to lose our home?" "Never, champ, I promise." At that moment, Catherine Brooks entered the lobby, followed by a cameraman. "Michael, I heard what happened. This is unacceptable." "No cameras," Michael ordered. "I'm not here as a reporter. I'm here because I care." "But Michael, you need to understand something. Parker is playing dirty. And you're playing by the rules, that way you'll lose." Michael knew she was right. But what could he do? How could he protect innocent people being used as shields? Catherine continued. "Public opinion is on your side. Use that. Tell the truth. Show what Parker is doing. I won't expose Ethan and Marcus more than they already have been. You don't have to, but you need to act fast." In the following weeks, the situation escalated. Parker continued his predatory campaign, stealing clients, spreading rumors about the financial instability of Thompson Construction Group. Michael fought on multiple fronts, trying to keep the company running while dealing with Marcus and Ethan's situation. The boy and his father were temporarily placed in an apartment rented by Michael, but Parker's shadow loomed over everything. Where would he strike next? The answer came unexpectedly. Rachel began receiving anonymous threats because of the video, messages saying she should take it down or bad things would happen. Frightened, she reached out to Michael. "This has gone too far," Michael said as he read the messages. "I'll arrange security for you and your mother." "No," Rachel protested. "I don't want to live in fear. And I don't want to remove the video. It's doing so much good for so many people." It was true. Every day, messages came in from people inspired by the video. Parents of children with disabilities who felt less alone. People who decided to help others more. A wave of kindness was spreading. Mrs. Barbara, who was present at the meeting, spoke up. "Mr. Michael, it's time to turn the tables. Parker thinks he can use fear, but love is stronger." "What do you suggest?" The elderly woman smiled. "My daughter has contacts on all social media platforms. How about telling the whole story? Not as a victim, but as someone who won't bow to cruelty." Michael hesitated. Exposing the war with Parker could have unpredictable consequences. But looking at Ethan, who was quietly playing in a corner, he realized he had no choice. It wasn't just about him anymore. That's when David, his accountant, brought news that would change everything. "Michael, I got a strange call. A group of international investors saw the video and wants to set up a meeting. They have a proposal. The meeting was scheduled for the following week." Meanwhile, Rachel, with Catherine's help, prepared a series of posts telling the story behind the video, without mentioning Parker directly, but making it clear that forces were trying to silence and harm those involved in that moment of kindness. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. Support Michael and Ethan started trending on Twitter. People shared their own stories of kindness. Local business owners began speaking up, offering support. Parker hadn't expected this reaction. In his luxurious office, he watched the social media movement with growing irritation. "Hire more bots," he ordered his assistant. "Spread rumors about Thompson. Say he's using the boy to promote himself." But it was too late. The wave of support was genuine and growing. Then came the blow Parker hadn't foreseen. A former employee, unfairly fired years earlier, decided to speak up. He reached out to Catherine and shared stories about Parker's predatory practices, with documented evidence. Catherine's report was devastating. It exposed years of manipulation, businesses destroyed, families ruined by Parker's greed. And at the center of it all, the cowardly attempt to use a child with disabilities as a weapon in a corporate war. The effect was immediate. Clients began canceling contracts with Parker Engineering. Investigations were opened. The empire Richard had built on others' misfortune began to crumble. But Parker wasn't one to give up easily. If he was going down, he'd take Michael with him. And he had one last card to play. On the day of the meeting with the international investors, Michael was optimistic. The executives seemed genuinely interested, not just in investing, but in creating a long-term partnership. They spoke about social responsibility, the impact of the video, and building businesses with purpose. The meeting was going well when Jennifer quietly entered and whispered something in Michael's ear. His face turned pale. "Gentlemen, excuse me for a moment," he said, rushing out. In the hallway, Jennifer was in a panic. "Sir, Ethan is in the hospital. He had a severe seizure." Michael felt the world spin. "What? He was fine this morning?" "Marcus said it came out of nowhere. It's very serious." Michael was torn between returning to the crucial meeting or rushing to the hospital. There was no real choice. "Jennifer, explain it to the investors. Family comes first." At the hospital, he found Marcus devastated in the hallway. "Michael, I don't know what happened. He was playing and then suddenly—" "Where is he?" "In the emergency room. They won't let me in." The next few hours were the longest of Michael's life. Doctors came and went without giving clear updates. Marcus wept silently. Rachel and Mrs. Barbara arrived to offer support. Catherine showed up, but respectfully kept her distance, not turning it into a news story. Finally, a doctor emerged. "His condition is stable, but it's serious. Ethan had a severe adverse reaction to a medication. We need to run tests to understand what happened." "But he's not on any new medications," Marcus said, confused. "Just his usual ones." The doctor frowned. "We'll look into it. For now, he's sedated. You can see him, but he needs absolute rest." Seeing Ethan small and fragile in that hospital bed, hooked up to wires and monitors, broke Michael's heart. How had this happened? The answer came shockingly the next day. Tests revealed traces of a substance that shouldn't have been there, a component that, when mixed with Ethan's usual medications, caused severe reactions. "Someone tampered with my son's medicine?" Marcus couldn't believe it. The hospital's investigation was swift. Security footage from the pharmacy where Marcus bought the medications showed something disturbing. A man had been seen tampering with the shelves the night before. The same man, a former employee of Parker Engineering, identified as one of his enforcers. Michael felt a rage he'd never known before. Richard had crossed every line. Attacking an innocent child was unforgivable. "We are going to end him," Michael told his attorney. "I want him to pay for every second of suffering he caused." But attorney Benjamin Wells was cautious. "The evidence is circumstantial. We need more." It was Rachel who had the idea. "What if we got a confession? What if someone got close to Richard pretending to want to help him?" It was risky, but it could work. And they knew exactly who could do it. Ryan Matthews, a businessman who had once been close to Richard, but secretly held resentment after being betrayed in a deal. Ryan agreed to help, motivated both by revenge and outrage over the attack on Ethan. Equipped with recording devices, he arranged a meeting with Richard. The conversation was revealing. Richard, believing he was speaking to an ally, revealed details of his plan, how he had manipulated situations, bribed people, and yes, how he had given that annoying kid a scare to pressure Michael. "Just to frighten him," Richard said on the recording. "I calculated the dose so it wouldn't be fatal. I needed something to destabilize Michael before the investor meeting." It was the confession they needed. But before they could act, Richard discovered the betrayal. Ryan had to flee in a hurry, managing to deliver the recordings to Michael. With the evidence in hand, everything happened quickly. Richard was arrested. The news exploded in the media. The man who had destroyed so many lives would finally face justice. But for Michael, the victory tasted bitter. Ethan was still in the hospital, slowly recovering. The investors, frightened by the scandal, had backed out. The company remained on the brink of bankruptcy. Then something extraordinary happened. It started with a message from a small business owner. "Mr. Thompson, I own a small construction company. It's not much, but I'd like to partner with you." Then another. "We're a group of architects. We want to help." Within days, dozens of small business owners, freelancers, even some competitors offered their support. The Do Save Thompson movement gained momentum. They weren't big investors, but together they formed a powerful network. Mrs. Barbara, watching it all, told Michael, "See, the good you've sown is coming back multiplied." Rachel organized a crowdfunding campaign to save the company that gave hope to so many. The goal was reached in 48 hours, But the most emotional moment came when Ethan was finally discharged. The boy, still weak but smiling, handed Michael a drawing. It was a crooked building with two figures holding hands, a tall man and a small boy. Below it, in shaky letters, "Thank you, Uncle Michael, for not giving up on me." Michael couldn't hold back his tears. There in that simple hospital room, surrounded by people he hadn't even known months before, he understood the true meaning of wealth. The recovery wasn't easy. The company had to be restructured, projects scaled back, but with the community's support and the solidarity network that formed, Thompson Construction Group survived. Richard Parker was convicted of his crimes. His empire crumbled, and he learned the hard way that money can't buy everything. Not respect, not true love, not peace of mind. 6 months later, Michael inaugurated a special project, the Ethan Support Center, a space dedicated to children with disabilities whose families couldn't afford treatment. Marcus Johnson became the center's coordinator, using his personal experience to help other parents. Rachel took charge of communications, ensuring stories of resilience reached those in need of hope. Mrs. Barbara, with her wisdom and life experience, became an informal counselor for the families. At the opening ceremony, Ethan cut the ribbon in his new wheelchair specially adapted for him. His smile lit up the room. When asked if he wanted to say something, he spoke in his slow but clear voice, "When you help someone, love comes back bigger." Michael looked around, at Marcus, who had become like a brother, at Rachel and Mrs. Barbara, who brought wisdom and purpose, at Catherine, who used journalism for good, at Ethan, the boy who changed everything. The video that started it all kept circulating, now as a symbol of something greater. It was no longer just about a businessman feeding a child. It was about how a single act of kindness can create ripples that transform lives, topple empires built on malice, and build bridges where walls once stood. That night, Michael received a surprising message. It was from his ex-wife, Amanda, who had left 5 years earlier, at the height of his obsession with success and money. "I saw everything that happened. The man in the video isn't the one I left, he's someone better. Congratulations, Michael, you've found what truly matters." Michael read the message over and over. Amanda was right. He wasn't the same man anymore. Blind ambition had given way to a greater purpose. Success now had a different meaning, but the story was far from over. The Ethan Support Center grew, helping more and more children, each with their own story, their own challenges, their own victories. And Michael was there, no longer the distant businessman, but someone who understood that true legacy isn't measured in buildings constructed, but in lives transformed. One afternoon, watching Ethan during a physical therapy session, making progress doctors had said was impossible, Michael remembered that day on the sidewalk, a moment of choice that changed everything. He could have kept walking, made it to the meeting on time, maybe saved his company in that moment, but then he wouldn't have met Ethan. He wouldn't have learned about courage by watching a boy face daily challenges with a smile. He wouldn't have met Marcus and his unshakable dignity. He wouldn't have discovered the strength of a united community. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, stepping closer. "About how a fallen jar of baby food changed my life," Michael replied with a smile. Marcus laughed. "It changed all our lives. Ethan always says you're his hero. He's wrong, the hero is him. I just had the privilege of being around." As they talked, Rachel came running with her phone in hand. "Guys, you won't believe this. We just got an offer from an international foundation. They want to fund the expansion of the center to other cities." It was another positive twist in a journey that had begun with a simple act of kindness. But Michael had learned there are no simple acts when it comes to goodness. Every act of love creates ripples that spread in unpredictable ways. That evening, during the dinner they now shared every week, Michael, Ethan, Marcus, Rachel, and Mrs. Barbara, they raised a toast, not to financial success or viral fame, but to the unlikely family they had become. "We should make a new video," Ethan suddenly suggested. "Show how everything turned out." "Why?" Rachel asked. "So people can see it's worth being good, that when we help someone, everyone wins." The boy's simple wisdom touched them all. And so they decided not to make just one video, but a series documenting the stories of the children at the center, their daily triumphs, the small miracles that happened when love and dedication came together. But shadows from the past still loomed. Parker, even detained, had allies, and some of them hadn't given up on seeking revenge. It started with small incidents: slashed tires on Michael's car, graffiti at the center, silent phone calls to Rachel. They were signs the war wasn't completely over. "We need to be careful," attorney Benjamin Wells warned. Parker had dangerous connections, but Michael wasn't alone anymore. The support network that had formed was strong. Local business owners offered security. The community organized watch shifts at the center. The message was clear: they wouldn't let evil prevail again. It was during this tense time that an unexpected figure appeared: Charlotte, Parker's sister, a 55-year-old retired teacher who had cut ties with her brother decades ago precisely because she disagreed with his methods. "I came to ask for forgiveness," she told Michael, "for what my brother did, and to offer help." Michael was wary. Was this another trap? Charlotte continued, "I know things about his business, where he hid documents, who his accomplices were. I want justice to be complete." With Charlotte's help, the investigations advanced. More people tied to Parker's schemes were identified and removed. The net was closing around the last remnants of his empire of cruelty. But Charlotte also brought a disturbing revelation. "My brother had a specific obsession with you, Michael, ever since you were partners." "Why?" "Because you had something he could never have, no matter how much money he made: people's genuine respect. Your father, Robert Thompson, helped our family when we were kids. He gave our father work when no one else would. Richard never got over what he saw as a debt. He hated owing anything to anyone." The revelation explained so much: the unhealthy rivalry, the need to destroy. Parker couldn't stand the idea that the Thompson family had been superior to his in kindness. "He kept clippings about you," Charlotte continued. "Every success of yours felt like a personal insult. When he saw the video, it was the last straw, the confirmation that you had inherited your father's kindness." Michael felt pity. What a miserable life Parker had built, based on resentment and envy. With the new information, justice could act more broadly. The corruption network was dismantled. The center was safe. But life kept bringing challenges. Ethan had to undergo a delicate surgery. There were weeks of worry, hospital vigils, prayers from people who didn't even know the boy personally, but felt connected to his story. The surgery was a success. When Ethan woke up, the first thing he said was, "Uncle Michael, it didn't hurt as much as I thought." "You're the bravest kid I know," Michael replied, holding the boy's small hand. "I learned from you," Ethan said. "You were brave too, when everyone tried to bring down your company." Ethan's recovery coincided with a period of growth for everyone. The center expanded, now offering psychological support for families as well. Rachel completed a course in social management. Marcus specialized in occupational therapy. Mrs. Barbara, now a beloved figure, organized support groups for grandparents and families of children with disabilities. Her wisdom and experience were priceless. "You know," she told Michael one afternoon, "my husband would be proud to see what you've become. Robert Thompson would be too." Michael smiled. Thinking of his father still brought longing, but now also pride. He was honoring the legacy of kindness and integrity. A year after the center's opening, they received an unexpected visit. It was the group of international investors who had backed out during the crisis. They came with a different proposal. They wanted to invest not in the construction company, but in the support center model to replicate it globally. "We've followed everything that happened," the group's leader said. "We realized we almost missed the chance to be part of something truly transformative." The offer was tempting, but brought new dilemmas. Expanding globally meant big changes. Could they keep the essence of what they'd built? It was Ethan who, without meaning to, gave the answer. During a presentation for the investors at the center, he approached a new girl, Sophia, who was crying on her first day. With his limited but purposeful movements, Ethan offered her his favorite toy. "Don't cry," he said with difficulty. "Everyone, here is a friend." The investors watched in silence. There was the heart of the center, not in the physical structure or programs, but in the spirit of welcome and love that filled everything. That one of them said emotionally, is what we want to bring to the world. Negotiations moved forward, but with one condition set by Michael and agreed to by all. Each center would keep Ethan's name and the philosophy that no child would ever be just a number or diagnosis. Every child would be seen as Ethan had been on that first day, as whole human beings worthy of time, attention, and love. The signing of the agreement was celebrated with a simple party at the center. Families, staff, supporters, all together. Catherine was there, not as a reporter now, but as a friend and part of the story. She had produced a documentary about the entire journey, from the viral video to that moment. During the party, Michael was called away to take a phone call. It was his personal doctor. "Michael, you need to come in for some tests. The checkup results showed something we need to investigate." The world seemed to stop for a moment. After everything they had overcome, was it now his turn to face a personal battle? Michael decided not to ruin the celebration. He smiled, returned to the party, keeping his worry to himself. But Rachel noticed something different in his expression. "Is everything okay?" she asked discreetly. "Yes," Michael lied. "Just tired." But Rachel knew this man who had become like a father to her all too well. Something was wrong. In the following days, Michael quietly underwent the tests. Waiting for the results was agonizing. When they finally came, the doctor was direct. "It's a tumor, early stage, but we need to act fast." The news was a blow just now when everything was going well, when so many people depended on him. How could he tell Ethan? Marcus? Everyone who saw him as a rock? Michael chose to fight in silence, at least at first. He began treatment quietly, inventing business commitments to justify his absences, but keeping secrets from those who loved. Him proved harder than the illness itself. Rachel was the first to confront him. "I know you're sick," she said one day, entering his office. "I'm not stupid, Michael. The signs are all there." Michael tried to deny it, but Rachel revealed she had done her own investigation, calling the clinic where he was being treated, posing as family. The truth came out. "Why are you facing this alone?" she asked, tears in her eyes. "After everything we've been through together?" "Because you've all suffered enough. Because Ethan needs stability. Because the center is growing and I can't be a burden." Rachel held his hands. "Michael, you taught us that family faces everything together. You don't have the right to keep us from standing by you now." The truth was revealed gradually. Marcus reacted as expected, with pain but also with determination to support him. Mrs. Barbara, with her wisdom, said, "I've seen many people face this illness. The ones who beat it are those who don't fight alone." Telling Ethan was the hardest. How could he explain to a child who had already endured so much that his hero was also vulnerable? But Ethan surprised them once again. "Uncle Michael will be okay," he said with conviction, "because he has to be. There are still so many kids who need him." The simplicity of a child's faith gave Michael renewed strength. The treatment was tough, with days of extreme weakness, but he wasn't alone. A rotation of care formed naturally. Rachel reorganized the center's operations so Michael could receive treatment without stepping away completely. Marcus took on more responsibilities. Catherine used her influence to secure the best doctors, but it was Ethan who brought emotional healing. On days when Michael was too weak to leave home, the boy would visit, bringing drawings, sharing stories from the center, just being there, a silent but powerful presence. "You know," Ethan said one day, "when I was in the hospital, you stayed with me. Now it's my turn." Those simple words held a profound truth about reciprocity, about how love flows and returns multiplied. During treatment, Michael had plenty of time to reflect on choices, on what truly mattered, on legacies. He began writing, memories, reflections, advice for Ethan and the other children at the center. "If anything happens to me," he told Rachel, "I want this published, so the story keeps inspiring." "Nothing will happen," Rachel replied firmly. "But yes, we'll keep your writings, they're precious." The treatment showed positive results. The tumor responded well, began shrinking. Every good test result was a celebration. Every setback, a renewal of collective strength. It was during this time that a new person entered their lives. Dr. Olivia Bennett, the oncologist overseeing Michael's treatment, a 45-year-old divorced woman who had dedicated her life to caring for cancer patients after losing her own father to the illness. At first, it was just a doctor-patient relationship, but Olivia was captivated by Michael's story, by the unconventional family he had built, and by the purpose that drove him even through his sickness. "Most of my patients fight to survive for themselves or their immediate family," she said one day. "You fight for hundreds of children you barely know." "I know every single one of them," Michael corrected. "They're all Ethan to me." Their mutual admiration grew. Olivia began visiting the center, enchanted by the work. She volunteered to create a preventive health program for the families they served. Rachel was the first to notice the exchanged glances, the subtle chemistry. "Michael is in love," she whispered to Mrs. Barbara. "It's about time," the older woman replied. "That man deserves love in his life." But Michael resisted. How could he think of romance while battling an illness? How could he involve someone in an uncertain future? It was Olivia who took the initiative. "Michael, I know you're going through a lot, but life doesn't stop even with illness, and I would like to get to know you beyond the clinic." Their first dinner was hesitant, the second more natural. By the third, they laughed like teenagers. Olivia brought lightness to the heavy days of treatment, and Michael brought renewed purpose to her life. Ethan approved immediately. "The doctor is cool. She doesn't talk all complicated like the other doctors." Marcus joked. "Looks like our family is growing again." And it was. True. What had started with a lonely businessman and a boy in need had transformed into a complex web of love, support, and shared purpose. 6 months later, Michael received the news everyone had hoped for. Complete remission. The cancer had been defeated. The celebration was epic, bringing together hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by this unlikely story. During the party, Michael stepped onto the small makeshift stage. "I want to thank everyone, but most of all I want to thank a boy who changed my life. Ethan, can you come up here?" Ethan, in his new motorized wheelchair, a gift from the community, went up the ramp. Michael knelt to meet his eye level. "Ethan, remember when I promised we'd go to a mile-high derby?" The boy nodded excitedly. "Well, I got something better. How about we be honorary captains for the next game? You'll do the coin toss." Ethan's eyes widened. It was a dream beyond his dreams. The crowd erupted in applause, but Michael wasn't finished. "And there's more. The center is getting a new building, bigger, better equipped, and it'll be called the Ethan Institute for Comprehensive Support for Children with Disabilities." Marcus openly cried. Seeing his son's name immortalized like that was an unimaginable honor. The story could have ended there on a high note of triumph and joy, but real life goes on, with new challenges and blessings. The Ethan Institute grew, becoming a national model. Branches opened in other cities. Universities studied its framework. Public policies were influenced. Michael and Olivia married in a simple ceremony in the Institute's garden, with Ethan carrying the rings and all the children they served participating. It was a wedding that celebrated not just the union of two people, but of an entire community. Rachel became the Institute's executive director, applying everything she'd learned. She also found love with Brian, a physical therapist who came to work at the center and fell for both the mission and her. Marcus completed his training and became one of the most sought-after therapists, not just for his skill, but for the unique empathy of someone who had lived the challenges these families faced. Mrs. Barbara, at 70 years old, published a book with the stories and wisdom she had gathered at the Institute. It became a bestseller, with all proceeds going back to the project. Ethan, now a teenager, surprised everyone by developing skills in technology. With specialized support, he created apps to help children with cerebral palsy communicate. His first app was downloaded millions of times for free. "I want all kids like me to be able to communicate better," he explained in an interview, speaking more clearly after years of therapy. Richard Parker in prison heard about these developments. In a moment of clarity, he wrote a letter to Michael asking for forgiveness. Michael visited him once, not to fully forgive, but to show that hatred no longer consumed him. "You lost everything by choosing the wrong path," Michael said, "but you can still change. There's still time." Parker wept, broken not just by justice but by the late realization of a life wasted on revenge and greed. Charlotte, his sister, became a volunteer at the Institute, finding redemption by helping where her brother had caused pain. The original video, the one that started it all, kept circulating. Now accompanied by updates, it showed what a single act of kindness had sparked. It became study material in communication courses, an example of how virality could be a force for good. Catherine produced a full documentary series, winning awards and taking the story worldwide. But the greatest reward, she said, was being part of that journey. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like the video and especially to subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Years passed. The Institute grew strong. Thousands of children received care. Families found support. Professionals were trained. The model was replicated in other countries. But at the heart of it all remained the same essence. A man stopping to help a child. A simple gesture that multiplied into waves of change. Michael, now with graying hair, still visited the Institute daily. Olivia worked there part-time, dedicating herself to the health program. Together, they had built a life full of meaning. One ordinary day, Michael found a new boy at the Institute crying in a corner. Liam, 7 years old, newly diagnosed with cerebral palsy, scared of the unfamiliar place. Michael knelt beside him, just as he had with Ethan years before. "Hey, buddy. Why the tears?" "I'm scared," the boy whispered. "You know, I once met a really brave boy. He had cerebral palsy too. Now he makes apps that help kids all over the world. Want to meet him?" Liam nodded timidly. Michael called Ethan, now an 18-year-old who moved with the help of special supports, but with remarkable independence. "Hi, Liam," Ethan said with his trademark smile. "Welcome to the place where miracles happen every day." Watching the two talk, Michael felt emotional. The cycle continued. Every child helped became a multiplier of hope. That evening at the weekly family dinner, now expanded to include Olivia, Brian, Rachel, and sometimes dozens from the extended family they'd become, they raised their glasses. "What are we toasting to today?" asked Mrs. Barbara, now 75, but still sharp and active. "To Liam," Ethan said, "the new friend I made today, and to all the Liams we've yet to meet. And to the man who made all this possible," Marcus added, looking at Michael. Michael shook his head. "I just stopped to help. You all built the miracle." "Sometimes," Olivia said, holding her husband's hand, "stopping is the most important act. Stopping the rush, stopping the indifference, stopping to see another person." Rachel raised her glass. "To the power of a single act of kindness. May we never stop believing in this." The toast echoed, but the conversation continued. Plans for the future, memories of the past, gratitude for the present. The table was full not just of food but of love built through hardships overcome together. Later, Michael and Ethan stepped out into the Institute's garden. The stars shone over the city that never slept. "Uncle Michael," Ethan said, "do you think my new app will help a lot of kids?" "I'm sure it will, like everything you do." "I learned from you to never give up on helping." Michael smiled. "And I learned from you to never give up on believing." They stood there in comfortable silence, the businessman who had nearly lost everything and found what truly mattered, and the boy who turned a dropped jar of baby food into a revolution of love. Inside the Institute, the lights began to dim, but in hundreds of homes across the city, families slept with more hope because that place existed. Because one day, a man had stopped to help. The original video occasionally resurfaced on social media, always with new comments from inspired people. "If he could stop, so can I," they wrote. And so the ripple continued. Michael sometimes wondered what would have happened if he hadn't stopped that day. He probably would have made it to the meeting, maybe saved the company temporarily. But he would have lost his soul in the process. Now looking at all they had built, he knew he'd made the right choice. The only choice possible for someone who still had a heart. The future brought new challenges. Ethan was preparing for college, determined to study software engineering to create even more solutions for people with disabilities. The institute needed constant expansion to meet the growing demand. New cases arrived daily, each with its own complexity. But there were also daily victories, children taking their first steps, words spoken for the first time, families finding support and hope, professionals discovering their calling in working with the children. And at the center of it all, the simple truth Ethan had expressed years ago: when we help someone, love comes back even greater. The story that began with a viral video had become something far bigger than its protagonists could have imagined. It was no longer about Michael, Ethan, or any one individual. It was about the transformative power of human kindness when directed with purpose and persistence. Schools began bringing students to visit the institute to learn about empathy and inclusion. Companies formed partnerships to employ young people with disabilities who had graduated from the programs. The government created policies based on the model developed there. But Michael always reminded everyone who visited, we didn't do anything extraordinary. We just stopped to see the other person. Anyone can do that, anywhere, at any time. And that was the real revolution. Not in the buildings constructed or the programs created, but in the shift of perspective, in the understanding that we are all responsible for one another, that a small gesture can start immeasurable change. One morning, Michael received a letter that moved him deeply. It was from a 12-year-old girl in a distant town. Dear Mr. Michael, I saw your video at school. My brother has Down syndrome, and I often feel alone taking care of him while my parents work. Your video made me realize I'm not alone, that there are good people in the world. Thank you for giving me hope. Now, when I care for my brother, I think I'm planting seeds of love like you did. One day I hope to visit the Ethan Institute. Sincerely, Olivia. Michael read the letter several times, tears streaming down his face. He showed it to Ethan, who smiled proudly. See, Uncle? We don't even know Olivia, but we're already helping her and her brother. It was true. The impact had transcended physical boundaries, reaching distant hearts through the simple spread of a message of love and care. The Institute established a pen pal program, connecting children from different places, sharing experiences and support. Olivia and her brother became part of the network, receiving guidance and eventually visiting the Institute with the help of an online fundraiser organized by the community. Each new connection strengthened the web of solidarity. Families who had been helped began helping others. Professionals trained at the Institute took their knowledge back to their communities. The multiplier effect was exponential. At an international conference on inclusion, Michael was invited to speak. On stage, in front of hundreds of experts, he began simply, "It all started with a dropped jar of baby food. A hungry boy, a man in a hurry who decided to stop. There was no grand plan, no vision for the future. There was just a moment of choice, to keep going or to stop. I stopped, and I discovered that stopping can be the first step toward truly moving forward." The audience listened in respectful silence as he recounted the journey. When he showed the original video followed by footage of the Institute today, many were moved. "I'm not here to say we're special," Michael continued. "I'm here to say anyone can do this, on any scale. What matters isn't the size of the gesture, but the sincerity behind it." The questions after the talk revealed the global impact. People from different countries wanted to replicate the model. They offered partnerships, resources, ideas. Ethan, who had accompanied Michael, was called to the stage. With speech still affected but clearly understandable, he said, "When I was little, I thought I was the only one in the world with struggles. Uncle Michael showed me I wasn't alone. Now, I want to show other kids they aren't alone either. Because no one should feel alone." The ovation was spontaneous and prolonged. There lay the essence of it all: human connection, practical empathy, love in action. Back in Denver, life continued with its mix of routine and surprises. The Institute was running at full steam. New projects emerged constantly. The team, now with dozens of professionals and hundreds of volunteers, maintained the family spirit of the early days. Marcus, promoted to educational director, implemented new programs based on his unique experience. "We must always remember we're working with people, not diagnoses," he repeated in meetings. Rachel and Brian were expecting their first child. The news brought renewed joy to everyone. "He'll grow up surrounded by love and diversity," Rachel said, stroking her belly. Mrs. Barbara, nearing 80, reduced her activities, but remained the group's spiritual advisor. Her wise words continued to guide important decisions. Olivia expanded the health program, establishing partnerships with hospitals for integrated care. Prevention and ongoing care saved lives and conserved resources. One quiet afternoon, Michael met Catherine at the Institute. The journalist, now a close friend, came regularly to document the stories. "Michael, I need to tell you something," she said. "I was approached by an international production company. They want to make a movie about you." Michael sighed. They had turned down several similar proposals before. "I know what you're thinking," Catherine continued, "but this time it's different. They want to donate all profits to the Institute, and they promise to tell the real story, no Hollywood fluff." It was tempting. The resources would help expand their work even further, but Michael feared excessive exposure. "Let's decide as a family," he said finally. "Like we always do." The family meeting was lively. Opinions were divided. Ethan was in favor. "If more people know our story, more children will be helped." Marcus had concerns. "I don't want our lives turned into entertainment." After much debate, they reached a consensus. They would agree, but with strict conditions on how the story would be told. The truth, the whole truth, focusing on the message, not the drama. The filming brought new energy to the Institute. Seeing actors portray their most difficult moments was surreal, but also therapeutic in a way. Revisiting the journey showed how far they had come. The actor playing Michael spent weeks observing him, trying to capture not just his mannerisms, but his essence. "How did you find the strength to keep going in the toughest moments?" he asked. Michael pointed to Ethan, who was assisting as a consultant during filming. "When you have a why bigger than yourself, the how always appears." The movie was a global success. More importantly, it kept its promise. The profits funded the opening of 5 new centers in underserved areas. The message reached millions, inspiring countless acts of kindness. On opening night, the whole family gathered at the theater. Michael held Dr. Olivia's hand on one side and Ethan's on the other. On screen, the moment of their first meeting was recreated with emotional accuracy. "It still feels like a dream," Ethan whispered. "The best dreams are the ones we live awake," Michael replied. When the lights came on, the audience stood to applaud. Not the film, but the real people present. Michael stepped on stage, moved. "Thank you for watching our story. But remember, each of you has the power to start a story like this. Just stop and look around. There's always someone who needs help. There's always a chance to make a difference." The line of people wanting to meet them stretched for hours. Each one shared their own stories of overcoming hardships or promised to start helping. An elderly woman approached Michael with tears in her eyes. "My grandson has cerebral palsy. He lives in another city. For years I just grieved from afar. Today I decided I'm moving closer to him. I'll be an active part of his life. Thank you for showing me it's never too late." Moments like these made everything worthwhile. Every life touched, every decision made in love, every wall of indifference torn down. Time moved forward relentlessly. Ethan graduated with honors in engineering. His assistive technology startup secured major investments, but he kept his focus, affordable solutions for those who needed them most. "Profit matters," he said in an interview, "but purpose is non-negotiable. I learned that from my Uncle Michael." Their relationship had evolved, from benefactor and beneficiary to something much deeper. Michael was the father Ethan had chosen. Ethan was the son life had given Michael. In his graduation speech, Ethan surprised everyone. "They said my disability would limit me. That I'd never go far. Today I stand here, not in spite of my condition, but because of everything it taught me, about perseverance, about creativity and overcoming obstacles, about the importance of community. My cerebral palsy isn't my weakness, it's my toughest teacher." and I've been privileged to have people by my side who saw beyond the diagnosis." Michael openly wept, unashamed of his tears. Marcus, beside him, was equally emotional. They had raised an extraordinary young man. Olivia squeezed her husband's hand. At 52, they had chosen not to have biological children, but felt like parents to hundreds through the Institute. Rachel, now a mother of 2, continued to lead with excellence. She implemented job training programs for young people with disabilities, bridging them to the workforce. "It's not enough to care for them in childhood," she explained. "We need to ensure they have a dignified future as adults." Brian expanded the physical therapy services, introducing innovative techniques. Together, he and Rachel formed a powerful duo of management and care. Mrs. Barbara, at 82 years old, still visited the Institute. Her presence was a living reminder that wisdom knows no age and that there's always something to contribute. "I've lived long enough to see the circle complete," she said one afternoon. "From a single act of kindness to a global movement, that gives me peace." New stories emerged daily. Like Rebecca, a girl with Down syndrome who discovered a talent for painting in the Institute's classes. Her artwork began to sell, with proceeds going to her family and the arts program. Or like Jack Vincent, a young man with severe autism who developed an extraordinary skill with numbers. With the right support, he became a financial consultant, shattering all prejudices about his limitations. Each story was unique, yet all were connected by a common thread. Someone believed in them. Someone saw potential where others saw only limitation. The Ethan Institute's model was studied in universities. Theses were written. Public policies were reshaped. But Michael always reminded them, don't overcomplicate the simple. At its core, it's about practical love, about truly seeing the other person. One afternoon, walking through the Institute's halls, now a complex occupying an entire city block, Michael stopped before a framed picture. It was the original moment, him kneeling, feeding Ethan on the sidewalk. "Sometimes it feels like another lifetime," Ethan remarked, walking up. "It was another lifetime," Michael replied. "We were different people. You transformed me just as much as I helped you." "I think we transformed each other," Ethan wisely corrected. It was true. The transformation had been mutual, collective, expanding in concentric circles that still rippled outward. News came from distant places. An institute inspired by their model opened in Africa, another in India. Families in similar situations found hope and practical support. But there were also constant challenges, tight funding despite donations, government bureaucracy, complex cases that tested the team's limits. In a tense meeting about budget cuts, Michael reminded everyone, "We started with nothing but determination. If needed, we'll start over. What matters is not giving up." His resolve was contagious. Staff accepted temporary pay reductions. Volunteers doubled their efforts. The community organized fundraisers. "It's in tough times that we see what we're made of," Marcus said, "and we're made of something stronger than money." They overcame the crisis, just as they had all the others, because what united them was greater than any obstacle. Years later, at a special ceremony, Michael received a government honor for his social work. On stage, he refused to accept it alone. "This award belongs to every child who surpassed limits. At the Institute, to every family who never gave up, to every professional who works with love, to every volunteer who gives their time. I was just the first domino to fall." Ethan, Marcus, Rachel, Olivia, they all joined him on stage. The photo from that moment, the unlikely family united, became a symbol of how love builds bridges where the world sees walls. That night at the celebration dinner, they raised their glasses once more, but Ethan's toast was the most touching. "To the scared boy I once was, to the man in a hurry who stopped, to the spilled food that changed the world." Sometimes the greatest miracles begin with the smallest acts. Everyone agreed. And as the night went on, with stories shared and laughter echoing, the fundamental truth remained. A single moment of kindness can truly change the world. The original video, now part of historical archives, still circulated. In schools, it was used to teach empathy. In businesses to speak about social responsibility, in families to show that everyone can make a difference. Michael, now approaching 60, kept the same energy. Every morning he arrived at the Institute with renewed purpose, because each day brought new Ethans, children needing someone to stop and see them. "It will never be routine," he told Olivia one morning. "Every child is a universe, every family a unique story." Olivia, who now managed the entire health division of the Institute, agreed. "That's what keeps us going. The certainty that there's always more to do." And there always would be. As long as there were children needing support, families searching for hope, barriers to be broken, the work would continue. But it wasn't a burden. It was purpose. It was the certainty of being in the right place, doing the right thing with the right people. The legacy was already secured, not in buildings or programs, but in transformed lives. In children who grew up believing in themselves, in families who found support, in professionals who discovered their calling. And all because one day, a man stopped. He stopped the rush. He stopped the indifference. He stopped to see. And in stopping, he set in motion something far greater than himself. A revolution of love that began with a spoonful of baby food and became nourishment for the souls of thousands. That was their story, our story. The story of everyone who chooses to stop and make a difference. Because in the end, as Ethan always said with his simple yet profound wisdom, when we help someone, love comes back bigger. And it always does, always.